Went to a party my BF warned me about, got attacked, and now he's breaking up with me. All right, so here's the thing. Matt and I go way back, like 6th grade back. We were just a couple of 11-year-olds who clicked instantly. I remember the first time we met. He had this goofy smile and a knack for making everyone laugh, even the teachers. We ended up being seatmates, and before I knew it, we were best friends. It wasn't just the casual, we hang out during recess type of friendship. It was the kind where you know each other's favorite snacks, secrets, and even the weird quirks no one else notices. We were inseparable from the get-go. Everywhere Matt went, I was there too. It's like we were stuck together, and honestly, neither of us minded. It wasn't just about having someone to share jokes with or do homework together. It felt deeper than that. Even as kids, we leaned on each other in ways most people didn't. Whether it was dealing with bullies or just feeling like no one else got us, we always had each other's backs. By the time we hit 14, things naturally shifted. We'd been best friends for years, but now there was this weird tension between us. Not bad tension, but like, every time he'd smile at me, my stomach would do this little flip. It was confusing at first because I'd never thought about Matt like that. But turns out he was feeling the same. One random day during one of our marathon phone calls about nothing and everything, he straight up asked if I wanted to be his girlfriend. I remember laughing nervously, thinking he was joking, but he wasn't. So we gave it a shot. Dating Matt felt like the most natural thing in the world. We didn't have that awkward getting to know you phase because we already knew everything about each other. Our relationship felt solid right from the start. Sure, we had our fair share of dumb teenage arguments, mostly about things like who left the last slice of pizza or who was worse at math. Spoiler, it was him. But even those fights never lasted long. We always found our way back to each other, stronger than before. Fast forward a few years, and we were still going strong. But then, life threw a major curveball at me. My parents died when I was 17. It was a car accident, sudden and brutal. They didn't have close ties with their families, so when they passed, I was pretty much left alone. That's when Matt's family stepped in. Without hesitation, they took me in like one of their own. Moving in with them was a game changer. I don't even know how to describe it, but Matt's mom, she's got the biggest heart ever. She treated me like her own daughter from day one. She cooked for me, made sure I was okay, and just cared. It wasn't just her, though. Matt's siblings, his older brother Jake and his 2 younger sisters, Lily and Emma, became my new family. They didn't have to do any of it, but they did, and I'll forever be grateful for that. Living with Matt brought us even closer. We weren't just a couple anymore. We were partners navigating life together. He was there for me in ways I can't even begin to explain. I was a mess after my parents passed, but Matt never once let me feel alone. He'd stay up with me during those sleepless nights when the grief hit the hardest. He held me when I cried and cracked jokes when I needed to laugh. He was my rock, plain and simple. We shared everything, our hopes, dreams, fears, and even the dumb little things that only made sense to us. Matt wasn't just my boyfriend. He was my best friend, my family, my safe place. And the thing is, he made me feel special. It didn't matter that I wasn't the smartest or the prettiest girl around. In his eyes, I was enough. Now, let me tell you a bit about Matt. This guy is something else. He's tall, like really tall. 6'3" to be exact. He's got this effortless charm that makes people instantly like him. He's funny, the kind of funny that makes your stomach hurt from laughing too much. And smart? Oh man, this guy is a genius. He's in med school and speaks 5 freaking languages. It's ridiculous how talented he is. But for all his amazing qualities, Matt had his insecurities. And honestly, that's part of what made him feel so real. He wasn't perfect. He had his flaws, just like everyone else. One of his biggest hangups was about cheating. His aunt had cheated on his uncle, who ended up taking his own life because of it. Matt was really close to his uncle, and that experience left a deep scar on him. It made him a bit paranoid, especially when it came to me being around other guys. He trusted me, sure, but that fear of betrayal was always in the back of his mind. Despite that, we made it work. We had this unspoken understanding that no matter what life threw at us, we'd face it together. I can't explain it, but there was this feeling of forever between us. We were planning a future together, marriage, kids, the whole deal. It wasn't just talk. We genuinely believed we'd grow old side by side. Looking back, those early years were some of the best times of my life. We were young, maybe a little naive, but we had something real. We weren't just another teenage couple. We were partners, best friends, and so much more. Life had dealt us some pretty tough cards, but together, we faced every challenge head on. I wouldn't trade those years for anything. Even now, thinking about all those moments we shared, I can't help but smile. Matt was my everything, and I was his. At least, that's what it felt like back then. But, as you'll see, life has a way of changing things. sometimes in ways you never see coming. So here's where things started to go sideways. Like I mentioned, Matt and I had a pretty solid relationship for years. We'd been through so much together, and I always felt like we could handle anything. But earlier this year, cracks started to show. It all began when I started spending more time with my friends. Don't get me wrong, Matt and I still spent plenty of time together, but I felt like I needed to hang out with other people too. I mean, we were together constantly, living in the same apartment, sharing everything. I wanted a little space, you know? Not because I loved him any less, but just to keep things balanced. But Matt didn't see it that way. He started getting weird about it, especially when I hung out with my guy friends. To be fair, he'd always been a bit jealous, but it felt like this time, it was on another level. He would ask me a million questions every time I went out. Who was going, what we were doing, when I'd be back. It was like he couldn't handle me having a life outside of him. One night we had a huge fight about it. I remember it so clearly. I was getting ready to go out, and he just snapped. "Why do you need to go out with them so much?" he asked, his voice already on edge. I tried to stay calm. "Matt, they're my friends. I'm not ditching you. I just want to spend time with them, too." But he wasn't having it. "You're prioritizing them over me," he said, his eyes narrowing. "Especially him." He was talking about one of my closest friends, Jake, who Matt had never liked. That's when things got heated. He demanded I cut Jake out of my life. "He's not good for you," Matt said. "I don't trust him." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Matt, you can't just tell me who I can and can't be friends with. That's not fair." "Fair? What's not fair is you putting him above us," he shot back. We went back and forth, voices rising with every exchange. It wasn't just about Jake anymore. It was about control, trust, and a whole lot of unresolved issues. Matt couldn't let go of his fear that I'd betray him, and I was fed up with being treated like I had to choose between him and my friends. The fight ended with me storming out, slamming the door behind me. I needed air, space, anything to clear my head. But the argument didn't end there. It simmered, hanging over us like a dark cloud. A few days later, another situation blew up. I was planning to go to a party with some friends, and of course, Jake was going to be there. Matt didn't like it one bit. He asked me not to go, claiming he wasn't feeling well. Headache, slight fever, the works. Part of me wanted to stay and take care of him, but another part of me felt like he was just using it as an excuse to keep me from going. We argued again. "I'm not going to that party to hurt you, Matt," I told him. "I just need a night out." "But why tonight? Why when you know he's going to be there?" he asked, his voice filled with frustration. "I'm not cutting Jake out of my life just because you're uncomfortable," I said, trying to stay firm but not harsh. "You have to trust me." "I do trust you," he replied, though his tone said otherwise. "It's him I don't trust." It was a no-win situation. No matter what I said, he was stuck in his head about it. Finally, I told him I was going and walked out the door. I needed to feel like I still had some control over my own life, even if it meant pissing him off. That party turned out to be a turning point, but not in the way either of us expected. After that night, everything changed. The fights became more frequent, more intense. It wasn't just about Jake or my friends anymore. It was about our entire relationship. Matt started pulling away emotionally. He wasn't the same guy who used to hold me and tell me everything would be okay. Now he was distant, cold even. I tried to talk to him, to fix whatever was broken, but it felt like he'd already checked out. The more I tried to bridge the gap, the wider it seemed to get. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were slipping away from each other, and no matter how hard I held on, he was slipping through my fingers. We'd built this life together, this partnership that had been our anchor through so much. But now it felt like we were drifting apart, and neither of us knew how to stop it. Looking back, I think we both knew something had to give. We couldn't keep going like this, fighting over the same things, hurting each other in the process. But at the time, neither of us was ready to admit it. We were stuck in this cycle of blame and resentment, and it was tearing us apart from the inside. I wanted to believe we could get back to where we were, to that unbreakable bond we once had. But deep down, I knew things had changed. The foundation of our relationship had cracks, and no matter how much we tried to patch them up, those cracks kept spreading. In the end, we were both scared of losing what we had, scared of what it meant for our future. And that fear, more than anything else, was what kept us holding on, even as everything else was falling apart. That night, I'll never forget it. It was supposed to be just another party. You know, one of those where you hang out with friends, laugh, and forget about all the stress for a bit. But instead, it turned into the worst night of my life, one that would change everything between Matt and me. I was already tense when I left for the party. The fight with Matt was still fresh in my mind. He didn't want me to go, especially since Jake would be there. He had this look, almost like he knew something bad was going to happen. But I was stubborn. I needed to prove to myself, and maybe to him, that I could still have my own life outside of our relationship. The party was in full swing when I arrived. The music was loud, people were laughing, dancing, just letting loose. It was exactly what I needed, or at least that's what I thought. I tried to push the argument with Matt to the back of my mind and just enjoy the night. I remember hanging out with a group of friends, catching up and just talking about random stuff. Jake was there, of course, but I didn't think much of it. We'd been friends for years, and I trusted him, despite Matt's suspicions. The night went on, and everything seemed fine. At some point, though, I started feeling weird. Not like sick or anything, just off. It's hard to explain. I felt lightheaded, and my body felt heavy, like I was moving through water. I figured maybe I was just tired or maybe overwhelmed from the fight earlier. So, I decided to find a quiet spot to lay down for a bit. There was a room in the back of the house, far from all the noise. It seemed like the perfect place to just take a breather. I slipped in, closed the door, and laid down on the bed. The softness of the mattress was comforting, and for a moment I felt myself relax. I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, I was waking up to the worst nightmare imaginable. It was disorienting at first. I remember opening my eyes and seeing shadows moving in the dim light. I tried to sit up, but I couldn't. That's when I realized there were people in the room with me. My so-called friends. I won't go into the details, but what they did to me, it shattered something inside me. I remember screaming, thrashing, trying to fight them off, but my body felt weak. I couldn't scream loud enough. I couldn't move fast enough. It felt like I was trapped in my own body, helpless and terrified. Then, out of nowhere, a girl, I didn't even know her, burst into the room. She must have heard me screaming. She came in yelling, pulling the guys off me. Her voice was like a lifeline, dragging me out of the nightmare. More people started showing up after that. Chaos erupted. The guys who hurt me got beaten up pretty badly. I can still hear the sounds of fists hitting flesh, the yelling, the chaos. Someone called the cops, and everything after that was a blur. I remember being taken to the hospital, the bright lights, the questions from the nurses and police. I felt numb, like I wasn't even in my own body anymore. The shock, the fear, it was overwhelming. 2 of the guys were arrested on the spot. The third managed to dodge the worst of it because he hadn't done as much yet. But honestly, none of that mattered to me in that moment. I was broken, shattered into pieces I didn't know how to put back together. I'll never forget the look on Matt's face when he saw me at the hospital. I had called him in a panic, barely able to get the words out. When he arrived, his eyes were filled with a mix of rage, heartbreak, and helplessness. He held me so tightly, like he was trying to piece me back together with his arms alone. But even then, I could feel the distance starting to form between us. In the days that followed, I felt like I was walking through a fog. Everything seemed distant, like I was watching my life from the outside. The police came around to take my statement, and while they were supportive, it didn't make the trauma any easier to bear. I had nightmares every night, reliving those horrifying moments over and over again. Matt tried to be there for me, but I could tell he was struggling too. He was always the strong one, the one who held me up when I couldn't stand. But now, we were both broken in our own ways. He blamed himself for not stopping me from going to that party. I could see it in his eyes, even though he never said it out loud. The party had become a turning point, not just for me, but for us. Our relationship had always been strong, built on trust and love. But now it felt like we were standing on a crumbling foundation. The trust was still there, but it was cracked, fragile. And the love? It was still there too, but it was buried under layers of pain and guilt. I didn't know how to move forward, how to heal from what had happened. All I knew was that the life I had before that night was gone, replaced by a new reality I wasn't ready for. And Matt? He was trying to be my rock, but even rocks can crack under enough pressure. After that night, nothing felt the same. I mean, how could it? I thought things between Matt and me would go back to normal eventually, but instead it felt like there was this invisible wall between us. And no matter how hard I tried to tear it down, it stayed up. In the beginning, Matt was everything I needed. He was there for me in ways I didn't even know I needed someone to be. He took care of everything. Cooking, cleaning, making sure I took my meds. He even started going to all my therapy appointments with me. I know he was trying so hard to help, but even with all that, I could feel him pulling away. The thing is, Matt and I used to be super close, like best friends on top of being in love. We'd talk about everything, even the dumbest little things. But now, conversations felt forced. He'd ask how my day was, but it felt like he wasn't really listening. He'd sit next to me on the couch, but there was this distance, like he was there physically, but his mind was somewhere else. I started to notice little things too, like how he'd avoid eye contact when we talked about anything even remotely serious, or how he'd go quiet whenever I brought up the past, especially that night. It was like he was trying to pretend it didn't happen. But I couldn't. It was there, hanging over us like a dark cloud, and no matter what, I couldn't shake it. Then there was the physical side of things. Before everything happened, Matt and I were super close in that way. He had this crazy high libido, and we were always pretty active. But after the incident, it was like that part of our relationship just disappeared. At first, I didn't think much of it. I mean, we were both dealing with a lot. But as the weeks turned into months, I started to realize something was seriously wrong. I tried to initiate things a couple of times, but he always had an excuse. I'm tired, or not tonight, I have a lot on my mind. At first I brushed it off, thinking he just needed time, but it kept happening. Every time I reached out, he'd pull away, like he couldn't even stand the thought of being close to me like that. It hurt. A lot. Not just because I missed that part of our relationship, but because it made me feel like I was broken, like I wasn't enough for him anymore. I started questioning everything. Was it me? Was it what happened? Did he not find me attractive anymore? I couldn't stop those thoughts from creeping in, and the more they did, the more insecure I felt. One night, I tried to talk to him about it. I worked up the courage, sat him down, and asked him straight out, "Matt, what's going on with us? Why do you keep pulling away?" He looked at me with this tired expression, like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. After a long silence, he finally said, "I'm just dealing with a lot right now. It's not you, I promise." But that wasn't enough for me. "Matt, we used to be so close. Now it feels like you're a million miles away. I don't know how to fix this if you won't talk to me." He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck, a habit he had when he was stressed. "I don't know how to explain it," he said. "I love you, but everything feels different now." Different. That word hit me like a punch to the gut. Different meant things weren't going back to how they used to be. Different meant we were stuck in this weird limbo where we loved each other, but couldn't figure out how to be together anymore. I didn't push him after that. I didn't know what else to say, and honestly, I was scared of what I might hear if I kept pushing. So I let it drop, hoping that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other on our own. But things only got worse from there. The distance between us grew wider with each passing day. I started to feel like I was living with a stranger. We still did all the same things, ate dinner together, watched TV, went to bed at the same time, but it felt like we were just going through the motions. I missed him. I missed us. I missed the way we used to laugh together, the way we used to hold each other like the world couldn't touch us. But now, it felt like the world had won, and we were both too tired to fight it anymore. I tried to keep myself busy, focusing on therapy and finding ways to heal. But no matter what I did, that emptiness inside me wouldn't go away. And Matt? He was there, but not really. He'd sit next to me on the couch, his arm draped over my shoulders, but it didn't feel the same. It felt like he was doing it out of obligation, not because he wanted to. Every night, I'd lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how we got here. How did we go from being so in love, so connected, to this? I knew we both wanted to fix things, but it felt like neither of us knew how. I tried to hold on to hope, to believe that we could get through this. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted between us, something that couldn't be undone, and that scared me more than anything else. I guess I always knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to admit it to myself. Matt had been distant for months, and every time I tried to get close to him, it felt like he was slipping further away. I kept telling myself it was just the stress from everything we'd been through, that we'd figure it out. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. The night I found out the truth started like any other. We were sitting on the couch, both staring at the TV, but not really watching. The silence between us was deafening. I couldn't take it anymore, so I decided to do something I'm not proud of. I snooped through his phone. I know it's a total invasion of privacy, and I hated myself for doing it. But I was desperate. I needed answers, and Matt wasn't giving them to me. So while he was in the shower, I grabbed his phone and started scrolling. At first, there was nothing unusual, just the usual texts with friends, emails, and some random notifications. But then, I found a conversation with his older brother, Jake. My heart sank as I read through their messages. It was like a punch to the gut. Matt had been pouring his heart out to Jake, telling him everything he couldn't tell me. The more I read, the harder it was to breathe. He wasn't cheating on me, but in some ways, what I found felt even worse. He blamed himself for what happened to me at the party. He felt like he should have stopped me from going, like he failed to protect me. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was what he said about us. About me. Every time I tried to get close to him, he couldn't help but think about that night, about those guys. He said it made him sick, that the thought of other men being with me ruined everything we had. He used to be proud that we were each other's firsts, that we had something special. But now, he felt like that was taken away from him, from us. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was like all the air had been sucked out of the room. Matt, the guy who had always been my rock, the one person I thought I could count on, felt like I was tainted. And the worst part? He saw me as a victim, someone who needed saving, not the girl he fell in love with. There was one message that stuck with me the most. Matt told Jake that he loved me, but he didn't know if he could ever look at me the same way again. He said that when he looked at me, all he could see was what happened, not the girl he used to know. He didn't say it outright, but I knew what he meant. He didn't see me as his partner anymore. He saw me as someone who needed to be fixed. I felt like my heart was being ripped out of my chest. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do anything to make the pain go away. But instead, I just sat there, numb. I didn't even realize Matt had come back into the room until he asked, "What are you doing?" I jumped, quickly locking his phone and setting it down like it burned me. "Nothing," I mumbled, but my voice cracked. He knew something was up. "What did you see?" he asked, his eyes narrowing. I couldn't lie to him, not after what I had just read. "I saw the messages with Jake," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. For a moment, he didn't say anything. He just stood there, staring at me like he didn't know what to do. Then he sat down next to me, letting out a heavy sigh. "I didn't want you to find out like this," he said quietly. "Find out what, Matt? That you don't love me anymore?" I snapped, the anger and hurt bubbling to the surface. He shook his head, his eyes filled with guilt. "It's not that I don't love you. I do, but everything's changed. I don't know how to deal with it." I felt tears streaming down my face, but I didn't bother wiping them away. "Why didn't you talk to me? Why did I have to find out from your texts?" "Because I didn't know how," he admitted. "I didn't want to hurt you more than you've already been hurt. And honestly, I didn't know how to face it myself." We sat in silence for what felt like forever. The weight of everything we had been avoiding was finally out in the open, and it was suffocating. I didn't know what to say, and clearly neither did he. Finally, I broke the silence. "So what now?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Are we just supposed to pretend everything's fine? Because I can't do that." Matt looked at me with a pained expression. "I don't know," he admitted. "I wish I had the answers, but I don't." It wasn't the response I wanted, but at least it was honest. And for the first time in months, I felt like we were finally on the same page. We were both lost, both hurting, and neither of us knew how to fix it. That night, we didn't have any big revelations or breakthroughs. We just sat together, holding on to each other like we were both afraid to let go. And maybe, in that moment, that was enough. Update 1. I woke up to silence. Not the comforting kind you get used to when everything feels normal, but the kind that feels off. You know, when the air feels heavier and something in your gut tells you that something's wrong. I reached over for Matt, expecting to feel his warmth next to me, but the bed was cold. That's when I noticed the note. It was sitting on his pillow, neatly folded, like he'd planned this carefully. My heart started racing before I even opened it. My hands were shaking as I unfolded the paper. The handwriting was unmistakably his, neat, careful, almost like he didn't want to smudge the ink. But what hit me was the first line. "I'm sorry." That was all it took. My mind went into overdrive, imagining all the worst-case scenarios. I forced myself to keep reading, though my vision blurred with tears. "I'm sorry for everything. I've been trying to be strong for both of us, but I can't do it anymore. I've realized that staying here is only hurting you more. You deserve better than someone who sees you through the lens of pain and fear. I wish I could be the man you need, but I've failed you. I can't be that person anymore." I stopped reading for a second, choking on my breath. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. He was gone. He wasn't just leaving for the day or a weekend trip. He was leaving us. The life we built, the promises we made. Gone. "Please don't think this is your fault. It's not. This is all on me. I've tried to push through, but every time I look at you, I'm reminded of what happened. and I hate myself for not being able to let it go. You need someone who can love you without any shadows hanging over them, and I'm not that person anymore. I read those words over and over, hoping they'd start to make sense, but they didn't. How could he think leaving me was the answer? After everything we'd been through, all the nights we spent trying to hold each other together, this is where we ended up. I'm leaving because I love you too much to keep hurting you. I know it doesn't feel like love right now, but it's the only way I know how to protect you from the mess I've become. Please don't wait for me. Move on, find happiness. You deserve that. I threw the note across the room. I couldn't take it anymore. The weight of his words crushed me. I felt betrayed, abandoned, but most of all, I felt empty. The one person who was supposed to stick by me, who promised we'd get through this together, was gone. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the note lying crumpled on the floor. Every part of me wanted to scream, to cry, to break something, but I couldn't move. It was like my body had shut down, refusing to process the reality of what just happened. Matt wasn't coming back. He didn't give me a chance to fight for us, to even say goodbye. He just left. I kept replaying our last conversation in my head, searching for clues, anything that would have hinted this was coming. But there was nothing. He seemed distant, sure, but I thought we were still trying. I thought we were still us. I spent hours sitting there, replaying every moment we shared, trying to piece together where it all went wrong. Was it the fights? The silence between us? The way he couldn't look at me anymore? Maybe it was all of it. Or maybe none of it. The truth is, I'll never really know what was going through his mind when he wrote that note. As the day dragged on, I kept expecting to hear the door open, for Matt to walk in and tell me it was all some horrible mistake. But the hours turned into days, and there was nothing. No calls, no texts, no signs of him anywhere. He was gone, just like that. His family didn't know where he was either. His mom called me, frantic, asking if I'd heard from him. When I told her about the note, her voice cracked. "He's running away," she said. "He thinks he's protecting you, but he's just scared." Scared. That word stuck with me. Matt wasn't just scared for me, he was scared of himself, of what he couldn't handle anymore. And instead of facing it, he ran. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to scream at him for leaving me like this, for making me feel like I wasn't worth fighting for. But I couldn't. Because deep down, I knew he thought he was doing the right thing. He thought leaving would make it easier for both of us. But it didn't. It left me alone, broken, and trying to pick up the pieces of a life we were supposed to share. As the weeks went on, the pain didn't get any easier. Every time I walked into our apartment, I felt his absence. His clothes were still in the closet, his toothbrush still in the bathroom. But he was gone. It was like living in a ghost town, surrounded by reminders of what we used to have. I kept hoping he'd reach out, that he'd realize leaving wasn't the answer. But he never did. And eventually, I had to accept that he wasn't coming back. He'd made his choice, and now I had to figure out how to live with mine. Letting go of Matt was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but holding on to someone who didn't want to be held was even harder. So I packed up his things, put them in a box, and tried to move on. It wasn't easy, and honestly, some days, it still isn't. But I'm learning. One day at a time. Update 2. It's been a year since Matt left. A year of trying to rebuild myself from the ground up, of figuring out who I am without him. Some days have been easier than others. I've had moments where I felt like I could finally breathe again, and others where the weight of everything still crushed me. But I was getting there, slowly but surely. Then, out of nowhere, I got the news. A mutual friend texted me. "Did you hear about Matt?" I stared at the message, my heart sinking. For a second, I didn't want to know, but curiosity got the better of me, so I replied, "No, what happened?" The next message hit me like a freight train. "He's engaged. He proposed to his new girlfriend." I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. Matt? Engaged? How could that be? It had only been a year since he disappeared from my life without so much as a goodbye. And now, he was not only with someone else, but planning to marry her? I didn't know what to do with the information. My hands were shaking, my mind racing. 1,000 questions swirled around my head. Who was she? How did they meet? Did he love her the way he used to love me? Or maybe worse, did he love her more? Against my better judgment, I did what I knew I shouldn't. I went looking for her online. It didn't take long to find her. Social media makes it easy to piece together someone's life these days. Her name was Megan, and she seemed happy. There were photos of them together, smiling, holding hands, even one of him down on one knee holding out a ring. That photo hit me the hardest. The look on his face, it was the same look he used to give me. Pure happiness, like he'd found the person he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. And now, that person was her. I stared at the picture for what felt like hours, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't wrap my head around it. How could he move on so easily? How could he be so happy while I was still trying to pick up the pieces? The worst part was that I couldn't even be mad at him. Deep down, I knew Matt wasn't a bad guy. He didn't leave me to hurt me. He left because he thought it was the only way to help me heal. But seeing him with someone else, knowing he'd found happiness again, it felt like a punch to the gut. For the next few days, I went through a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, jealousy, confusion. I wanted to hate him, to scream at him for moving on, but I also wanted to be happy for him. After all, wasn't that what I had been trying to do? Move on, find happiness? But seeing him actually do it, it hurt. I talked to my therapist about it, trying to make sense of everything. She reminded me that healing looks different for everyone. You've been focusing on yourself, and that's important, she said. But Matt's journey is his own. His happiness doesn't take away from yours. Her words made sense, but it didn't make the pain any easier to bear. I still felt like I had been left behind while Matt had gone on to build a new life. I kept asking myself, was I not good enough? Was our love not strong enough? But deep down, I knew it wasn't about that. It was about timing, about circumstances neither of us could control. A few weeks after finding out, I decided to stop looking at Megan's profile. It wasn't healthy, and it wasn't helping me move on. Instead, I focused on what I had accomplished in the past year. I'd found a new job, made new friends, and started rebuilding my confidence. I was learning to be okay on my own, even if it wasn't easy. One day I ran into that same mutual friend who had told me about Matt. We got coffee, and of course the topic came up. "You doing okay?" they asked, their eyes filled with concern. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if I was being entirely honest. "Yeah, I'm getting there. It's just weird, you know? Seeing him happy with someone else?" They gave me a small smile. "I get that. But you know, he's not the only one who deserves happiness. You do too." Their words stuck with me. Maybe I had been so focused on what Matt was doing that I forgot about myself. I deserved happiness too. I deserved to find someone who would love me for who I am, scars and all. And maybe that someone wasn't Matt. Maybe it was someone I hadn't met yet. Or maybe it was just about learning to love myself first. That day I made a promise to myself. I would let go of Matt, not just physically, but emotionally. I would stop comparing my journey to his, stop holding on to the past like it was the only thing that defined me. It wasn't going to be easy, but I owed it to myself to try. Matt was a part of my life, a big part. But he wasn't the end of my story. He had his chapter, and now it was time for me to write my own. One that didn't revolve around him, but around me. My growth, my happiness, my future. And so I took a deep breath, closed my laptop, and took the first step forward. 1 year later, I might not have all the answers, but I'm learning, and that's enough.